Are we on? Oh,
Yeah, there we go. Hey, everyone. You're watching DeFi Talks with DeFi Dad. Thanks for joining us, everyone. It's Monday, September 19th, 2022. I am joined here today by AJ Warner, who is the Chief Strategy Officer of Offchain Labs. So AJ has been, I would say, a founding member of the Arbitrum team.
not a founding member.
Not a founding member.
Early member.
Basically, he's been there for a very long time. But the last time we got to talk was actually back in April at Permissionless 2022. And a lot has happened since then. So I'm excited to kind of catch up with AJ here on, what has been their growth strategy through this sort of crypto winter. I'm delighted to share the fact that, Arbitrum has seen lots of growth in terms of net new applications and founders that are building natively on Arbitrum to start. And so this has been very important for mainstream adoption of Ethereum-based applications because with Arbitrum, they're basically fast and cheap while enjoying the decentralization and security of Ethereum. So on that note, AJ, thanks for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Excited to have this chat.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about Arbitrum Nova, which was a recent upgrade and sort of what's the impact for builders and users. But in case anyone doesn't know you, can you share a bit about your background and tell us the real story about what's your role at Offchain Labs?
Yeah, so,
since I screwed that up.
No, that's all good. So I actually have a pretty interesting history and a long history with the Offchain Labs team, who's obviously developing the Arbitrum protocol. So my background, like everybody else in crypto, is pretty unique. And I started out as a real estate attorney. I was doing corporate deals at a major law firm in New York, but have been very passionate about Ethereum and Bitcoin, basically, Bitcoin since about late 2013, early 2014, and Ethereum obviously at launch and beyond. I was working closely with the Offchain Labs team. I've known Steven for about 15 years, who's the co-founder and CEO. And I was their lawyer when they formed the company, when they did their initial seed raise in 2018. At the time, there probably wasn't much for somebody who didn't have a technical background to do. So I stayed on the outside and was, cheering them on and working with them with some thoughts and ideas as we got ready for, the mission of scaling Ethereum. Once they launched the testnet in October 2020, I basically quit my job and joined full-time to lead ecosystem growth and development efforts. So I've been with there a little bit less than 2 years, and it's been an incredible journey. So really excited to talk about it more.
Maybe we should back up then and talk more fundamentally about what is Arbitrum as a layer 2, and then I'd love to again launch into the recent network upgrade, Arbitrum Nova.
Yeah, sure. So Arbitrum is an optimistic role of technology, and the way to think about that is it takes the execution environment of transactions off of Ethereum layer 1 or Ethereum mainnet and does it in another environment called Arbitrum. So Arbitrum sits on top of Ethereum. For end users, it looks like another blockchain. When you interact with it, whether it's on MetaMask or a different wallet, it looks like you're interacting with a new blockchain. But under the hood, it lives on top of Ethereum. And what Arbitrum does is it takes your transactions, it batches them together with other users' transactions, and it compresses them and posts the data to Ethereum. That has the effect of making your transactions significantly cheaper. So for ETH transfers, it's somewhere between 5 and 10 times cheaper, but much more complicated transactions that use a lot of computation, something like a GMX transaction, it probably lowers your cost between 50 and 100 times. So really makes these things scalable, accessible, and much better user experience for end users. To talk about upgrades, though, we're really excited. So one thing to clarify on nomenclature, because this stuff is incredibly complicated to describe. So Arbitrum Nitro was the big technical upgrade that we did, and we launched a new chain called Arbitrum Nova. So I'll talk about the Nitro upgrade first, then we can talk about maybe the Nova chain second, which is a sister chain to Arbitrum 1, which is like the core Rollup protocol everyone knows and loves. We launched our new V2, essentially the protocol called Arbitrum Nitro. And what Nitro does is it does two things that users care about: makes transactions cheaper and makes throughput much higher. In the old Arbitrum stack, there were a lot of components that we custom built. So like, for example, it was a custom built like node that we had running.
Hey, AJ, can we pause just a moment? Do you have anything on your side that might be making like a noise? It almost sounds like a piece of paper. I'm just making sure it's not just on my side distracting anyone.
I don't think so.
You're coming in clear. Yeah. Okay. Okay. It looks like you're okay now. Yeah. It looks like it stopped there. So, okay, great. Sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Where was I? So talking about Arbitrum Nitro. Can you hear me?
Yep. You sound great. Yeah. Go
Awesome.
right ahead.
Yeah. So on Arbitrum Nitro, the old protocol was a lot of custom features that we built. We built our own programming language to help support the operating system for the Rollup protocol. We had a custom built node. And a lot of these things, compared to like Ethereum and EVM and Geth, were not optimized. And over time, obviously, we were working on optimizations. But in the V2 of the protocol, Arbitrum Nitro, we came through and found a much better path, where basically we took the Geth code base, made some modifications, but it has much higher throughput. And the effects of that were we were able to introduce advanced compression as well. So transaction fees came down around 50%, and throughput went from about 1 Ethereum worth of traffic to now 7 Ethereum's worth of traffic, which is a meaningful increase. You can do dozens of transactions per second. If we're in high volatility environments, from a pricing perspective, we don't necessarily kick into congestion right away. It's been a really exciting upgrade for users, developers, and us as a team alike. Our goal here is to scale Ethereum and to continue to improve on the throughput of it without compromising on security is critical to our mission.
AJ, maybe we should talk then a bit about some of the homegrown heroes on Arbitrum. I think for a longer time we were watching existing applications or protocols that had launched on Ethereum mainnet. Some of those then, like let's say Uniswap or Aave, would then port over and launch, and that's exciting because there's an existing user base there. But what I think again has been a little more remarkable is to see net new builders, net new applications that are starting to really gain a large audience. One in particular I got to cover recently was GMX, which has something like 80,000 plus unique users based on unique wallets that are using it. So if you can tell me just a little bit more about that journey, like attracting new builders who are brave enough to launch, on an early Ethereum L2.
Yeah, it's probably the most exciting development in the Arbitrum ecosystem. And this goes back, I think, to the early conversations that we were having during the testnet phase and in advance of launch on mainnet, where you're talking to Uniswap and Curve and Sushi and Aave and all these different teams about what is your strategy for growth, right? If we're to go back to like DeFi summer of 2020, the gas wars of 2021 and the scaling wars, and transactions on mainnet were way too expensive. Like obviously, right now in the market today, L1 has become cheaper, but for a long period of time to do like a Uniswap transaction on mainnet was about $20. And all of these, projects that initially I think were unsure of what their L2 strategy was, and ultimately a lot of the core and major L1 projects launched on every L2, which I think for them makes sense with an existing user base on L1. But the secondary effects of what happened of the launch of Arbitrum and high throughput and scaled environments is that certain new use cases and certain users had the ability to engage. And one of the biggest components of that was the launch of derivative markets and perpetual swaps. These transactions could not survive on mainnet. So the computation of a GMX transaction would be extremely expensive on mainnet. And those kind of builders move to Arbitrum really quickly. And our philosophy at launch was to work with existing Ethereum projects, but always be aware of that new horizon. And I remember when GMX was launching at Arbitrum, they were on testnet, I think about 3 or 4 months before Arbitrum went live, and it was just like, X who was working on the project, and I was working with him and chatting with him, and it's crazy to see it go from that to what it is today with an absolutely massive community that's also generating a ton of revenue for its LPs, users, token holders, and its ecosystem. And that's an incredible success story, but I think it's part of a larger story where new builders who couldn't afford, frankly, to even deploy a smart contract on Ethereum now have the ability to interact with Ethereum and create all these new different things. And every day we have builders building on Arbitrum who say, we're leveraging the infrastructure that you have on chain, whether it's Uniswap or Chainlink or Alchemy and Furor, any of these major Ethereum infrastructure providers to do things on L2 that could never survive on L1. So we see the DopeX community with options, and Mycelium, just the rebrand from Tracer with their suite of derivative products that they're working on. Vesta. There's so many different teams, and Umami building strategies. Like there's so many different teams and builders who are creative, who are thinking through things. Some of them work, some of them don't work. But being on an L2 gives you that playground to say, my opportunity cost is I deploy a contract that might have cost me 50 cents to see what's going to happen versus, on Ethereum where that could cost you $1,000 or hundreds of dollars, obviously. So like that environment and that paradigm has been a huge shift in the explosion of creativity in DeFi. And I would say that that's true about all L2s, but what I think makes Arbitrum unique and the Arbitrum environment unique is how collaborative these builders have been. Whether it's GMX and DopeX on Friday announced a relationship that they're going to be building options on top of perps, and Umami's building strategies leveraging both of these platforms, and Vesta having GMX and GLP as collateral now, and thinking through all of these new teams and all of these primitives are coming together to create structured products that I don't have the big enough brain to understand, but like are really pushing the boundaries of decentralized finance. It's incredible to see, and I think that's one of the use cases of L2 that I think I underappreciated when this journey started. And I think my vision was somewhat like, okay, swaps will just be cheaper, and it'll allow the world of Ethereum to be more inclusive. But it's exploded beyond that with products and ideas that just I never thought to be possible.
Yeah, there's barriers to entry that have been lowered by allowing users to take advantage of those like cheap and fast transactions. But then I think, as you pointed out, there's lots of new creative protocols, applications, use cases because of the fact that you can transact more often, cheaply. So, I mean, a really obvious one in DeFi that we had actually truthfully already seen take off with other L1s and like, early emerging L2s is just the ability to auto compound. And so those strategies, we've been waiting forever for that to be possible with Ethereum L2s. And so the fact that Arbitrum is as cheap and fast as it is, it now allows for there to be those sorts of interesting use cases.
I think
so
one other great example I think of this is like Oracle updates, right? Like Oracle is having the ability to update way more frequently, much more cost effectively. You have, for example, like some of these protocols have significant leverage where, liquidations, you want to have a trusted decentralized Oracle providing that. A lot of that's not possible on L1 infrastructure between block times and all of these different components. And like the experience on L2 is it's just so much better. And we're so excited to see what's happening. I think, one other area that I think Arbitrum's taken off and I probably underappreciated at launch was almost like the interaction between DeFi and gaming. Like some people call it like GameFi. Like the Treasure DAO ecosystem, right? They've grown a massive ecosystem of both games and community. And I think that's also like an L2 native and leveraged concept that you couldn't have the volume of transactions you're doing on Ethereum L1. And we're really excited that as projects like that also have the ability on Arbitrum to really succeed.
AJ, how do you think about the recent merge, the network upgrade for Ethereum? I guess what's the importance of that in relation to Arbitrum?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things. Like obviously, having the merge behind us and moving to a proof of stake environment, I think it's just great for like the Ethereum ecosystem. I think, you know, between researchers, developers, you know, protocol designers, like everybody is just, it's just great that it's like over with in some sense.
Yeah.
One of the areas that I think it will really benefit though is moving beyond decentralized finance, where you have certain verticals that were extremely focused on the environmental impact of proof of work that could not justify the trade-offs of using something like Ethereum on a proof of work environment versus, you know, blockchain. And some of them are going to alternative ecosystems that were prioritizing sort of being carbon neutral. But I think that the fact that Ethereum is now proof of stake is going to be really helpful for other verticals to succeed in a way that they might have been potentially limited before. We've seen this with gaming, with NFTs, you know, entertainment and culture. And I think that those non-financial verticals are really going to benefit from the completion of the merge. One of the things that people, you know, sometimes have a misunderstanding about is that the merge didn't lower fees on Ethereum L1. All it did was just change the consensus mechanism. So I used to get the question all the time, like, what's Arbitrum going to do after the merge? And the answer is the exact same thing, right? Like, provide a scaling solution. Obviously, you know, Ethereum has its own strategy that we're working closely with whether it's, you know, dunk sharding, proto-dunk sharding, the different EIPs about how to make, you know, data availability for rollups cheaper on L1, and like that's an awesome path to continue to explore. But like fundamentally, like the ability to start thinking about those things and just have like the move from proof of work to proof of stake behind us is, I think it's incredible for the ecosystem. And in some ways, like, you know, one of the concerns that people had was like, how do you know, like, how do you price in the risk of the merge, right? Like, and you know, the irony of like the price, you know, collapsing after the merge is a little bit disappointing in that sense. But like pricing in, like, you know, swapping the engine out of like a $400 billion ecosystem mid-flight, like, should not have been priced in at 100%. But if you look at it now, it's like that risk is gone, right? Like, we are in a proof of stake environment, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, there was a lot of risk in that event, and I think, as you pointed out, for years, you know, it sort of hung over our heads as builders, users, investors. I mean, it's nice to have that behind us now. It really, like, the merge was an event that, if it goes as planned, you don't get all the high fives outside of the most immediate dedicated community of builders. You know, for all of us, obviously, it was very relieving and really probably the most remarkable day for most of us since like joining the Ethereum community. But for the user, what was special is they didn't have to worry about anything. Like, they were able to, for me, it was around 3 a.m. Eastern.
Same.
And I actually transacted about an hour before, just kind of like boldly wanted to like double check, you know, and see like, okay, everything's still working the same. And then shortly after, I just sent a little bit of ETH just to see, and was, you know, of course, delighted that I didn't have to change a chain ID. I didn't have to, you know, you didn't have to do anything absurd like swap any ETH for some new ETH. Everything sort of remained the same, and that is it's just an insane sort of engineering feat that was accomplished. And speaking of engineering feats, you all did have this major network upgrade, Arbitrum Nova. So can you remind us, like, what was the reasoning for that? And then what are the benefits to us as users and builders using Arbitrum?
So the Nitro upgrade, sorry, just to clarify, so Nova is the new chain, and we can talk about that in a second. I think it's really interesting for the users. And the Nitro upgrade was that took us from, you know, one Ethereum worth of traffic to 7 Ethereum's worth of traffic, and it dropped costs by about 50%. So like, it's been amazing to see. And it used to be on Arbitrum when there was like, you know, major price volatility that we would enter congestion, but you know, we've increased the throughput of that. We saw that with the Odyssey, for example, right? So the Arbitrum Odyssey, which you know, hopefully we'll have more information when we restart it soon. The goal of that was for people to interact with Arbitrum project and expose, or, you know, get exposure to Arbitrum projects and learn about them. And you know, when we were doing the GMX week, what happened was we hit congestion, and it became quite clear that the user experience in the old Arbitrum stack was was not perfect, right? Because we didn't have as much throughput as we would have liked. So we're going to relaunch it now post Nitro, where we have 7 times the amount of capacity, and I think the user experience is just going to be much better. On the Nova side, so Arbitrum Nova is an interesting new product. So for those that are unfamiliar, Arbitrum Nova is a new sister chain that we launched to Arbitrum One, and the differences between them are that Arbitrum Nova doesn't leverage Ethereum in the exact same way. It leverages it using a data availability committee. And so the fundamental difference between Arbitrum One and Arbitrum Nova is Arbitrum One posts all of its call data to Ethereum, and Arbitrum Nova, the validation assertions happen on Ethereum. It's an L2. The bridging is from Ethereum, but it posts the data to a data availability committee. So why did we introduce this new Nova product? I think what happened was when we launched Arbitrum One, the rollup, it became quite clear that for certain use cases, Ethereum layer 1 for call data was just still too expensive. So, going back to a typical transaction, if a swap on Ethereum was $10, it probably cost around 25 cents on Arbitrum. But for certain verticals, 25 cents for a transaction is too much. Obviously, on DeFi, for most people, that's not a prohibitive expense, 25-cent transaction. But if you're doing a game or like high throughput NFT games or social, you just can't have 25-cent transaction fees. And the majority of that 25 cents comes out of the call data that's posted to Ethereum. So what we did was we built a product which, instead of posting it to call data to Ethereum, it posts call data to a committee. And any member of the committee who's a validator has the ability to force the protocol from committee mode into rollup mode. So the way it works is quite elegant, is if everybody agrees and everything is working as proper, the committee holds the data. Again, everything else is posted to Ethereum. It's just the data that's posted to the committee. But if there's a disagreement, any of the validators can push it back into a rollup mode. And then the effect is that progress continues on the chain, except it becomes more expensive until there's the dispute between the committee members is resolved. So we launched this product with a very strong committee targeted at social and gaming uses. So, we're not telling DeFi projects. We don't want DeFi projects to be moving over. Like GMX, I'm sure is going to stay on Arbitrum One, DOPEX, all these projects that want to leverage the Ethereum security. But for certain verticals, it just didn't work. And we launched on day one with Reddit. So for context, what Reddit is using Arbitrum Nova for is the Reddit Community Points Program. So they had it in July 2020, so it's almost 2.5 years ago. I can't believe I'm saying this already. They announced the Reddit Scaling Bake-Off, where they wanted to scale Reddit communities on-chain. And that is a massive event. So they took 2 as a test case, the R cryptocurrency, like the subreddit for cryptocurrencies, and the Fortnite subreddits. They gave them the moons and the bricks tokens. And instead of getting karma points for contributing to the community, you now get ERC20s. And they want to bring that on chain. So your contributions to these communities are tokenized and something that you own and you control. So with Nova, they launched with those 2, and they airdropped. Actually, I think it might be, my guess is it's probably the single biggest initiative to onboard new users into Web3 in history. They onboarded on the first day 260,000 wallets on Arbitrum Nova with tokens, right? So I think it was like 180,000 in the cryptocurrency subreddit and 80,000 in the moon in the bricks tokens of the Fortnite subreddit, and that happened all in one day. And to fund 265,000 wallets with tokens, and to do this on a continuous basis as they continue to earn more tokens for contributions, on Rollup it was pretty cost prohibitive. The whole initiative I think cost I think like $1,500 on Arbitrum Nova to fund 260,000 wallets, so it's sub penny basically per wallet, right? And that was the advantage that you get using Arbitrum Nova. So our vision is to have these 2 chains live in parallel. With they have the same code base. The only difference is where you post in the data. And to build this, we built a really strong committee. And the trust assumptions is that you trust one member of this committee will hold your data or force it into rollup mode if necessary. So we wanted a good mix of Web 2 and Web 3 as part of the initial committee launch. Again, just that anybody can get comfortable with that assumption. So right now on the committee is Offchain Labs, Reddit, FTX, Coinbase. Consensus. If you could just delete Coinbase. Google Cloud. Wait, I'm gonna do this again because that's just probably uncomfortable editing. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. No. Yeah. Keep going. Yeah. So
the consensus, the committee is Consensus, Offchain Labs, Reddit, FTX, Google Cloud, QuickNode, P2P, the team that built the Lido protocol. And the goal here is that you can always have some member of the committee that you trust. So if either you're a Reddit user, you trust Reddit, right? Because you're already trusting them to hold your data and your karma points. If you're Web2 and you want to trust Google Cloud, you have Google Cloud as a part of the committee. If you're more Web3 native, whether that's FTX customer or consensus user or even Offchain Labs and Arbitrum user, there's always somebody that you can get comfortable with. So that was the vision for building this out. Again, we're not looking to compromise on Ethereum's security with a rollup. It's just for certain use cases, it was very hard for them to make that trade-off of low transaction fees. So we have two chains, Arbitrum One, where like a lot of the DeFi and high value NFTs, live and will continue to live, and we're super excited for. And the sister chain, which is focused on social and gaming use cases, called Arbitrum Nova.
Makes sense. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. So Nitro being the like overarching upgrade, Nova though is
exactly, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Very cool. I'm glad we got that clarified. So AJ, anything else then? We can wrap up here. Anything else worth pointing out on the near-term roadmap for Offchain Labs and the Arbitrum community, or maybe any call to action for new users and builders?
Yeah, well, we just had the Nitro upgrade 2 weeks ago. It's a collective deep breath for our team. For developers, we're going to have a hackathon at DevCon at the EF conference in Bogota. So we're really excited to have an Arbitrum-focused hackathon there. You can find on details on our Twitter page if you're a developer. For users, our goal and our commitment is to continue to try and scale Ethereum and to make Ethereum accessible to the entire world. We like to joke internally that the first commit for the Nitro GitHub was 6 days after we launched Arbitrum 1. And that's just the perspective of our team. We don't stop. We're relentless in our desire to scale Ethereum without compromise, and we're going to continue to do that. Whether it's we're working on a number of different research initiatives to continue to improve both the throughput and the properties of the Rollup protocol, and we're going to continue to do our share to scale the Ethereum ecosystem. We're really excited about a number of new partners that are going to be joining the Arbitrum ecosystem soon. So stay tuned to what's going to be on our Twitter announcements over the next couple of weeks. And if you're a user of Arbitrum, continue to use it. Give us feedback, or if there's anything that you're looking that's not there in the Arbitrum ecosystem, let us know, and our team can work to get the applications that you like to use on Arbitrum. The ecosystem is robust. It's getting much more mature than even the last time we spoke in May, and every day it's more and more exciting. So try it out, give us your feedback, and I hope you love it.
Yeah, so reminder to everyone, if you want to learn more about Arbitrum, highly recommend go to arbitrum.io. If you are looking to bridge, there's bridge aggregators like BUNGEE.exchange, which basically helps you navigate any path from other L2s or Ethereum mainnet to get to Arbitrum. We named a number of the applications, which I've tried and are pretty exciting again to use because they're cheap and fast, like GMX or DopeX or Mycelium recently launched, and then some of the more familiar names that we've all used on Ethereum L1 like Uniswap or Aave. And then be sure to follow AJ on Twitter as well as Arbitrum, the network. And if you enjoyed this, please subscribe at defidad.com. That'll take you to my YouTube page. But I think more importantly, check out LensTube, which is basically like a reimagined Web3 media using a stack where you're 100% in control of your content without the centralization of legacy Web2 social media. On that note, AJ, anything else you want to share before we go?
No, thanks so much for having me. This was great.
Absolutely. Oh, and then quick shout out to my team at Fourth Revolution Capital. If you enjoyed this content, please thank my team or think of my team at Fourth Revolution Capital. If you're a talented builder, whether you're building DeFi on Arbitrum or a new social app, whatever, please get in contact with us at fourthrevolution.capital. All right, after that snazzy animation, we'll end the broadcast here. AJ, thanks again for your time, and everyone have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.